Okay, hello. Thank you for coming to the session. It means a lot to me that you turned up because this is my first session that I've ran in woodcraft like this. So quite nervous, quite excited. I'll basically run through what's going to happen. I have a little PowerPoint where I'm going to talk about how sorry, I've been part of this group called Resist, this organization called Resist for the past couple of months, in which the main goals of it is to inspire young people who want to help fight climate change into organizing events and run events. So it's been a great experience, and the main idea for this session was just to run through some of my ideas that I've had for some of my sessions with you and other group leaders in case it can help to help them get inspired. So I'm going to talk about that for a little bit, and then halfway through we'll have a little break and then a little discussion, because I'll be sharing my ideas, but I want to hear everyone else's ideas as well. I think that's very important. So that's what's going to happen. I'm sure everyone knows what climate change is, but I wanted to cover what it properly is, how it's caused, because I didn't know properly what it was until I properly looked it up. So essentially, the world is gradually heating up little by little by greenhouse gases like CO2 or carbon dioxide. And the official term for that is essentially solar energy should be going back out to space from the Earth. It should be radiating off of it, but greenhouse gases are essentially keeping it in a greenhouse, and instead of it radiating out to space, is keeping it inside this solar energy and re-emitting it in all over the Earth, and that's what's heating it up. And the WMO says that if the current warming trend continues, temperatures could rise by 3 to 5 degrees by the end of this century. And that's not a good thing, because I think this is a common known fact, but if the Earth even rises 0.5 of a degrees now, the ice caps will be fully gone in a couple of years. So this is why it's very important, because it's not just it's not just climate change, it's the melting ice caps, which are very alarming. And obviously temperatures have always fluctuated, average temperatures have always fluctuated for hundreds of years, but now there's no longer, it's just increasing for the past few years, and that's the alarming thing. So I wanted to go over a couple of different ways that you could raise awareness for children, because obviously Woodcraft is a children's organization, and I think that the narrative of children fighting climate change is very important. I don't think it's something that's very been seen anywhere else. I think it's a very rare thing to have seen, that it's actually the majority of this fighting is coming from youth. So I think we need to continue educating younger children and showing them that you can fight it, you do have a voice. So I have a few session ideas. I'd like to run through them. The first couple of umbrella category I have are creative sessions, because I always think they're a great way to get people involved. So I have things like community projects, like scavenger hunts around the neighborhood. So these are all kind of local activities that you can do that might get your local area involved. So for example, scavenger hunts, very simple, easy thing to do. You can leave papers around your local area, showing clues, maybe have a little climate change facts in it as well. I think it's a great way to get your local areas involved as well as woodcraft. And it would be a fun session to sit and come up with clues and design all these little things to put around. I have rock painting, that's another thing, rock trails. So you could actually split that into 2 sessions. You could have a little area where you go and find these rocks at a local beach. And then the second area, the second session, you can paint them. Again, very useful for designing, creativity. We could have meat-free cooking. That is another session. this is definitely obviously not COVID friendly right now, so this would be a session for the future, unless you could do it on a Zoom. But that would definitely, sorry, it would definitely be for more older children, so ventures, pioneers with, well, pioneers with adult guidance, and definitely more safety involved there. But I remember there was one time we did a cooking session with my venture group, and there was this great book. It was called Displaced Dishes. This is slightly not climate change related, but I wanted to raise awareness for this because I think it's a great idea. The author went to a refugee camp in Greece, and she collected all these different dishes from all these refugees. So it's a book collected of entirely recipes from refugees all around the world. And I think it's such a cool idea. I'm going to place the link to the website in the chat because I'd love everyone to check it out. I think it's definitely a really cool, an amazing idea. And I think it's so impactful. So yeah, I just wanted to bring awareness to that. Am I going too fast? I feel like I'm powering through it a little bit. Is everyone understanding fully? Yeah, okay, great. So,
Edward, I was wondering could you go a little bit into how the rocks and the scavenger hunt links to the climate change? I'm making notes.
all right. Yeah.
It all sounds great.
I had rock painting as in you could put climate change designs on them. And the same with the scavenger hunt. I do think they're not as climate change related fully, but I still think they're fun, creative sessions, and you can bring the awareness into it. And I think it would be good for younger children, I think, definitely, because I feel like it is important to have that diversity. If you just sit young children down and just talk to them about climate change, they're not going to get as involved. And that's why I've tried to come up with different creative ideas to try and get people interested in it. Another session idea I had was obviously poster making is a very useful session. It's cost effective. I would try to make these sessions as cost effective as possible because I know that it's not always the best, like it's not always easiest to find funding. So for poster making, you just really need materials and, you know, paper or cardboard and painting materials, drawing materials like pens. They're great because there's multiple different things you can do with posters. You can decorate with them, you can advertise, you can make a poster specifically for your room, or you could post them around your local area, post them at your school. You could even make like signs during the session for if you're going to a climate strike, things like that. I think it's always a good session to have, if that makes sense. Same kind of vein as this, badge making was one that I know that was brought up a lot in Resist. Same kind of idea, although you would need a badge maker, obviously, but it's a great session idea. Sorry. Hi. Okay, I'm so sorry. It's great because you can put in, I'm sorry, can you all hear my notifications? I don't know why they're blowing up. I'm so sorry. This is all going today. Okay, I'm so sorry, let me get back on track. They're a great idea. I know that I would personally prefer using badges as posters just to decorate. I have little badges on my school bag actually. So they're a great kind of subtle way as well. They're more, just to raise awareness, I guess not raise awareness, but it's nice to just kind of have those messages. I have like amnesty badges and stuff on my bag. So it's nice to have those kind of messages to show that I support them, if that makes sense. Yes, so those were my creative idea sessions. I have more informational activities next. These are ones where I would say these are definitely more in-person sessions towards more towards Zoom sessions, but they're obviously very adaptable as well. I have planned these in the hopes of a near future where we are managed to, have sessions indoors, hopefully in a couple of months, depends on what happens. But yes, so the first session idea that I had, there's a game that I did a couple of years back with one of my with my woodcraft group. It was called, I think it was called 2 Steps Forward and 1 Step Back, where essentially you're giving a character or a situation, and you're asked questions about how this would affect their life. And if you think this would affect their life majorly, you take 2 steps forward. If you think it would affect them minorly, you take 1 step forward. And if you don't think it would affect them at all, you take 1 step back. So I'm probably not explaining this the best, so I'll refer to some examples. For example, the characters you could be given would be, someone would be given a tourist guide in Maldives, where they have to, they rely on sales and their wages to pay for their family. You know, they're the sole benefactor and the moneymaker. And as these, the main attraction are the coral reefs, but obviously climate change is affecting these coral reefs. There's not as many fish, not as many people want to go and see them if there's not fish. So another character could be a native indigenous community member, where they rely solely a lot on produce and moving around a lot. And of course, these natural resources are being depleted by climate change. And a third character could be a wealthy landowner who recent floods have caused them to, they're a landlord, sorry, and recent floods have had them to constantly repair things in their properties. So you'd have these characters lined up and you'd ask them questions such as, this would affect my home life. And so, of course, for some characters, like the tourist guide, it would affect them majorly because they do not have enough money, they have a family to feed. So they would perhaps take 2 steps forward. Whereas this wealthy landlord, it wouldn't affect their home life as much because they still have money, if that makes sense. So you'd maybe either stay in place or take 1 step back. Does everyone kind of see where I'm coming from with this? Okay.
I do. I just had a question in terms of what kinds of questions would you be asking people to respond to in terms of taking their steps? Are there specific questions?
Most of the ones that I had were kind of, so it's not so much a question as much a statement. So it would say, this would affect my home life or my financial situation, or this could affect my livelihood, things like that. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what though.
So, sorry.
So if there's a statement and it would affect my home life or my family or my, but I don't quite get exactly what.
Okay, so.
Am I making sense? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, I get where you're coming from. So, as in, this would affect, as in the changes that have happened to climate change. So, for example, with the tourist guide, having less people coming to see these attractions and you having less money is going to affect your home life and your financial situation a lot. And you would take, so when I say this would affect my home life, it's referring to your specific scenario. So it would, the specific scenario is the tourist guide's losing money, whereas the landowner's specific scenario is they are having to pay for repairs at their properties. So there's no large scenario. I guess the large scenario is climate change. Does that clear things up, or? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
I've just put a question in chat because I'm just asking with this role playing thing. Do you think it will work in a team instead of just individual?
You could have the roles individually, or you could have them in a team. I think what I had originally planned was for individual, but it depends on how large your group is. I do have a session that's actually linked to that, where it would be the same roles, the same characters, except for you'd have more of an open discussion about it rather than a game. And you'd link them, you'd have a kind of table from 1 to 10 or whatever, and you'd have to rank the scenarios and how largely they're going to be affected, if that makes sense. So you would, again, I'm using these 3 examples, but you'd have the native indigenous community member, and the tourist guide would be pretty high up on the affected scale, whereas this landlord would be slightly less affected. And I think that's another good idea, because whereas 2 steps forward, 1 step back is more to make you think by yourself, this discussion means everyone can share their input as well. So they're kind of hand-in-hand sessions, if that makes sense. You could run 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then a little discussion afterwards about why you thought this would affect. Does that make sense? Okay. Is everyone clear on that? I know I might not have explained that better without the PowerPoint. Can I move on, or does anyone have any other questions about those 2 sessions? No? Okay, great. I also had guest speakers. That's always a great option. I think it brings another person into this discussion with a unique perspective that might not be seen in your group. You know, if you've previously ran climate change sessions, everyone might kind of know, or like have a collective knowledge. So it'd be a great chance to get a guest speaker in and talk about things that the group might not know about yet. And whether that's a, teacher, a professor at a college, or even just a person from a climate change charity, I think what I'm trying to say is I always think guest speakers are a great option for a group project, or not a group project, a group activity. And this final one I had was planning individual climate action resolutions. So this is a little short session you could maybe do at the end of your climate change session. So you could say, okay, everyone, we're going to make 3 resolutions. So you could say, I'm going to walk instead of take the car, or I'm going to make sure I turn the lights off when I leave the room, or I'm going to go meat free on Thursdays. So these kind of resolutions are a great way to get the children involved. And I think as well, you could even offer maybe like a reward. I know that for maybe the younger ones, like elephants and wood chips, that might appeal to them more if you go, okay, if you stick to these resolutions, we'll give you some sweets, I don't know. And maybe it will actually get them involved, and they'll maybe continue doing that. And I think it's a great sort of small step forward in showing that you can make a change all by yourself. Because I know the narrative is, oh, if I don't turn the lights off, like if it's just me who does that, I'm not making a change. But actually, if it's a group of people all doing it together, it really does make a change, and it makes an impact, if that makes sense. And I think that it's a great option, just a small option as well, if you don't really have any climate change sessions really available to you. This would just be a small one that you could just get the children to do at home, and you could even do like a little follow-up session, being like, have you stuck to your resolutions? Are you going to make new ones? Stuff like that. And there's a session actually that I have fully planned out that I would quite like to execute, but I thought I would share it with you. It's a stay-at-home kit, where this is more. This was planned when there was a big lockdown going on, so I now know that some groups are able to meet in person, but this would still be a great chance to do something like this in the near future. So it's a stay-at-home kit where you're sent out, the children are sent out just a little like folder or kit where it's there's some activities to do, like coloring, or there's more informational parts about climate change, and there's also materials required for a project that you could execute through Zoom. So, for example, the session that I had planned out was a supervised Zoom class where you made planters out of water bottles. So the children would be sent out, seeds, some markers, and they would be asked to provide, like soil and a water bottle. And I designed it so that, sorry, let me just collect my thoughts. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to explain it. I'm so sorry. It was designed to be accessible for everyone. So it would also include things like scissors and glue. Definitely more of a expensive-ish activity to run, depending on how many people are in your group. But I think it would be a great session for younger ones as well. Have I explained that properly? Does anyone need me to clarify? Do you all know what I'm meaning? And the final idea I had was a survey. So this could be in link to another session that you're running, where at the start of, before you've done your climate change session, you hand out this survey, and it has questions like, sorry, it's like a yes, no, sometimes type survey where it's like, I turn the lights off when I leave the room. I leave my electronics charging overnight. I would rather take the bus over a car. These kind of questions. And yeah, you get your the participants to answer these questions. And then you can run your session. And then there's another half of this survey where it's more kind of like, moving forward, are you going to turn off the lights when you leave the room? So it's more kind of to bring light for the participants to see how climate change, like how, I don't know how to explain, it's like more aware they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, how like you as an individual can
yes.
make a small contribution to improving things.
Mm-hmm. So for example, you could, I feel like sometimes you have to kind of see your impact written down on paper to realize, oh, I need to make a change. Like, you wouldn't think twice about leaving your room and not turning the light off. But then if you're writing it down on a survey, it makes you think, oh, I should probably turn the light off when I leave the room more often now. I should make sure that I don't keep my phone charged in overnight, because all that's going to contribute to your carbon footprint, essentially. And it's not so much a session you could do primarily, but I think it would be a great a great addition to a session in which you can really show the participants how important it is. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah, you could kind of have them all adding up, couldn't you, over
yes,
in total and over time, so you show the collective effect of doing it all together, small things.
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea would be you could essentially adapt it to like an ABC style survey, where it's like the more A ones you have gives you like 3 points, or B gives you 2 points, and then you all add up, and it will show you how, like, I don't really, I guess the carbon footprint. So it could say you need to do more to reduce your carbon footprint, or you're doing well, keep it up, stuff like that. I think it's also a very adaptable idea. You can make up your own questions to it as well. Those were just some of my ideas. But that is the end of my little PowerPoint that I had. I'm so sorry that it wasn't available, but I would love to hear people's ideas. I don't know if we want to have like a little 5-minute break before this discussion, or...
We haven't really got that long left, so I think we should just carry on.
Can I just say, I think they're all absolutely fantastic ideas, and I'd certainly like to use some of them with our group. But rather than reinventing the wheel, would it be possible to share some of, like, if you've already got questions written down somewhere that you've already thought up, would it be possible to share those so that I could just steal all your ideas and not have to redo it myself, just to save a bit of time? Like, because I know there's some resources on the Woodcraft website under the games section. Would it be possible to add them on there somewhere, or would there be a place that they could be made sort of
Yes.
for public use?
Yes, I can definitely do that. I did have
share them to me, Edward. We've taken the audio from this and we'll stitch them together with the slides that we would have had in an ideal world, and we'll put it on the climate change section with anything that you can send me as well.
Yeah,
great.
we'll be really useful, like some of the questions for the surveys, ones that you've thought up, and also if you have got them written down, some of the questions and things that you would for the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like if you had some questions written down already, then it would just be really useful to have those, rather than having to think them all up from scratch, because don't have much time. So that would be brilliant. Thank you.
I get that. I definitely will. I have them in. I can definitely do that. I do have some questions written up for examples for this, so I can definitely put them all together, and I can either have them emailed out or put on the website for you.
Owen, could you let me know when that link goes live? Because would like to share it with all the Scottish members.
Yep, will do.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions about the session or any things that I've covered? If you want me to elaborate, I can do that.
I watched an interesting thing by Simon Sinek, like a YouTube video on what is motivational to people. How do you get people to have a sense of agency over what can be a very abstract thing? Climate change is a very abstract thing, but if you talk about saving people, then people can buy into that a lot more. In essence, the planet won't die, but it will kill us with the damage we're doing to it. So it's that kind of sense of around our messaging, to put it in a marketing terms, but how do you actually appeal to people's motivation, you know, and particularly around children. I think what we've seen from the climate strikes, that they're almost more willing to take action than the adults. So some of those suggested actions can be around, how do you get that pester power into, how do you mobilize the pester power to get the adults to take more action now, because it is a crisis. So yeah, I don't know if that makes it less fun or but that's where I kind of come at this. I'm always impressed by the young people's kind of attitudes to this, seem much more enlightened, but that sense of urgency is becoming more and more kind of urgent to put that across to the people who can kind of the people with the power at the moment.
And I will say that I planned these sessions obviously around young ones, so I tried to make sure they were more uplifting activities, or, you know, powerful ones. So they're still, I didn't want it to constantly be, especially in a COVID setting, just depressing, like, oh, we're gonna die in 10 years, you know. So I wanted to make sure these sessions were still educational and they still conveyed the fact that this is urgent, but I wanted to make sure that they weren't, you know, so glass half empty style things. I'd much rather in this current situation look on the bright side and say we have hope for fighting this, rather than, does that make sense? I think that there's
you've got to have hope. Got to inspire hope in old people like me.
Yeah, I think that the obvious, I think the other half of the kind of spectrum where it's like, no, we like, you know, what you were saying about how we actually have to show that this is a dire situation. I think that's important as well. I just think for young one sessions such as woodcraft, it's probably would be nicer for the young ones to actually have fun in these sessions. And I don't want it to seem as if I'm being mean and being like, no, I don't like your idea. That's why I'm saying that I really do totally understand your point about how both sides there, like, sorry. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to phrase it. I'm really sorry about this. I totally do see where you're coming from. And I also think that that message is important. And I think that you could even do sessions where it is more pessimistic and showing that we need to take urgent action. But I think that message is something that needs to be conveyed more to the adults rather than the younger ones. I think the adults would probably react to it more if they saw how dire the situation was. But I think the children would be more excited on taking climate action if there was more of a, you can make a change, that kind of message. I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really key in how we plan our sessions, that you kind of, you might start with the activity that introduces what the problem is or what the challenges are or what the causes are, but then you make sure that you do something which, follow that with something that involves taking a positive action or understanding what you can do. So you're teaching things in an age appropriate way, but you're not dressing up the situation to say it's better than it is, but you're moving from problem to thinking about solution rather than just letting them go home knowing that we're screwed. Do you know what I mean? It's that important kind of, it's the journey through the content that you set out when you plan sessions, I think is the way that we do that. I've just put a link in the chat as well to the climate emergency toolkit that we produced last year, which, just from what Maggie was saying about shelf ready activities, there's quite a lot in there that are designed to be very much kind of lift them off and take them, that are on very, very similar themes. And again, we kind of consciously grouped those around, yes, issues about what you can do locally, but also exploring those bigger things about climate justice and how it links to other aims and principles as well.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right, Edward. We have to be very aware of our young people's well-being, and we don't want kids going home and having nightmares or worrying about things. So the hopeful message is a good way to go. So yeah, I think you're spot on. But David's also correct that we need to get that sense of urgency, and the young people are the best way to do that. But I think just action from young people will push adults towards finding out more about it, and then they can maybe handle the slightly more in your face consequences. So yeah, no, I think you're right.
That's why I'm in charge of safeguarding rather than inspiring.
I think in our group we tried to stress that if we sort this problem out now, it won't be a problem for our children when they're adults. And so they need to pester everyone now to make changes so that they don't have to sort it out when they're older, is how we've sort of put it to our elfins anyway. So it's saying this will be a problem, but it can be sorted now. So, yeah.
And the other thing as well is they will be getting stuff on this in school, and that will be done, no harm to the teachers. I'm one myself, but it will be fairly dreary and very educational. Whereas we want them to come to Woodcraft and be inspired to do something, not be like, oh, it's climate change again. So I think that sort of spin on it really works.
Yeah, I will just say, I think that it's more, I will say, at least for my school, they're not really doing much about climate change education. And I think that's so disappointing that they said, we're going to make sure that climate change is included in the curriculum now. And they haven't really, some teachers have been like, okay, this is what climate change is, but they've not really gone into how to fight it. And I think, at least from my personal experience, that's why Woodcraft is so important, that we know the values and educate the children, because obviously this is why we're here. And I think that showing these messages, this climate change and how to fight it, is going to be more important for people who don't have a school that educates them. If that makes sense.
Could that be another activity? So we did it with our group before. We did postcards to our local MP, and we also sent to the government as well. So on the front we drew a picture of climate change, and on the back we wrote a message to them. But you could do that to a head teacher at your school, with a picture of what would happen, you know, due to climate change, and on the back asking a message that please can more about this be taught in school. So that could possibly be another activity to do. Quite cheap as well, because all you need to do is cut out card into postcard shapes.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I really like that, actually.
All our Elfins wrote letters to the local MP, and he did a really good job of writing back each of them personalised letter addressing in really age-appropriate ways, which made them all like actually feel that they had done something and taken notice. I mean, you know, not sure it will lead to policy referrals, but it was a really good sort of citizenship message about how you do communicate to folks in power as well.
Yeah, I always think that that's what I think that is another place where children's voices are very valued. You know, I think it's more I think for me, it's like if I got letters from adults saying, please change this, I probably wouldn't think of it as much as if a bunch of children had written in and been like, please change these problems, if that makes sense. And even stuff like, I know that our local Waitrose, there's been campaigns led by people before where they've asked them to change certain stuff to be more ecologically, and they have actually tried to make a change and listened, and I think that's great. Yeah, that's definitely a great idea. I think that's why I kind of wanted to have this little discussion, because like I say, I've had ideas, but it's just as important to hear everyone else's ideas. I didn't want it to just be me talking at you for an hour. I really wanted it to be, and I think I've powered through it a lot just so I could get to this discussion phase, because I'd much rather everyone be able to talk about it. I don't like being that one who just talks about everything, and I love saying that, and now I'm the one just rambling. But you know, I hope that you've learned something from my session, essentially.
It's been really great. You've done really excellently, and thank you for taking the time today. I'm more inspired now. Very positive.
Thank you. It really does mean a lot. I mean, I did panic a little bit throughout the session. It's definitely a weird, a new situation for me to be the one talking to adults. So it was definitely a little nerve-wracking, but I will say, if you enjoyed my session, my name is Edward, and if you didn't like my session, my name is Anna. So
I just want to say, yeah, you've done a fantastic yeah, you've done a fantastic job, and I think you should do more of this, talking to adults and inspiring adults, definitely.
And thank you all for coming. I know that, at least for me, at 11:30 a.m. during lockdown, I was still in my bed. So it really does mean a lot that you showed interest and came to hear me talk about my ideas. I just, you know, I feel like me being part of this Resist organization is now kind of my duty to be like, I've been educated about this. Now I need to share what I've learned and make sure that more people know about it.
That's pretty much the tagline for Woodcraft, Edward. So well done. No, seriously, thank you so much. And I know we know how much work you put into preparing it. So we'll make sure that as many people get to see it as possible. But yeah, thanks